We will not allow into Israel people that call for the boycott of Israel and work to delegitimize the Jewish state.
The Israeli government, and in particular Netanyahu, is behaving like a typical dictatorship in the sense that they cannot tolerate dissent, they cannot tolerate criticism.
They are so anti-Israel, so anti-Jewish. I did speak to people over there. No, I don't encourage or discourage.
It really sets a horrible precedent for Israel in making this decision. I mean, why would any country make a decision to deny a United States congressman access to their country? Do they not believe the United States has done a tremendous amount for Israel?
And we are back with our panel. Ro Khanna, the congressman there, Democrat, is joined by virtually every other Democrat in blasting President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu for this decision not to let the two members of the so-called squad into Israel. How says the panel?
Well, I think the first thing, obviously, from a Israeli security point of view, there is a opportunity for them to say, actually, if you are supporting something that is manifestly against the Israeli national security interest in terms of economic boycott, divestment, which would aims to end the economy, that's one thing. The problem for Democrats is that with the young progressive element coming in, who are noticeably more anti-Israel, and now with the Democratic caucus having to surround, I don't know if that's me, sorry, having to surround these two members of Congress, there is a challenge in the sense that it forces the Democratic Party to coalesce in a way that perhaps makes them more anti-Israel.
The president. Well, it was interesting to hear Hanan Ashrawi, who is a member of the Palestinian Authority, blasting Israel for not letting her in, or not letting these members of Congress into the country. She's been blocked from coming into the United States.
Right. There is this sort of widespread rejection of borders and national sovereignty that we're seeing in some groups on the left. The first question that needs to be answered is just whether Israel has the right to determine who can come into its country or not. And they actually have a law forbidding entry to non-citizens who support boycott movements against Israel and its people. So you can have an exemption to that, and they actually were willing to provide that exemption to these two members of Congress because of their close relationship to the United States. But then they found out the itinerary of these members of Congress, which the ambassador to the U.S. described as a BDS circus. BDS is the term for the boycott movement. So finding out that they were coming not as an outreach mission or to find facts about Israel, but to do something that was so political, it would be in direct violation of an Israeli law. So they have the right to do this. It's unfortunate because it's good for people to visit Israel, to learn more about this country and to understand the complexity of the situation there, not just about Israel, but the Palestinian territories as well. So one hopes that they will be able to visit under different circumstances.
Some Republicans have suggested this was a bad move on the part of the Israelis. Senator Martha McSally is not among them. Listen to her take on all of this.
An unjust racist decision. Rashida is a Palestinian who is coming to visit her country, to visit her family, to visit her village. Her father and her mother, their roots are Palestinian. Rashida's roots are Palestinian. Her grandfather, her grandmother, her father, her mother are from Palestine, and they talk all the time about the fact that she is Palestinian. Why are they preventing her from entering Palestine?
I think Israel has a right to decide who can come into their country, just like we do. For my part, I love Israel. I've been deployed to the Middle East 5 times, and I think that both Omar and Tlaib, their actions and their words have been dangerous.
That was Rashida Tlaib's uncle who began that particular sound segment. So interesting politics on both sides, really.
Well, look, it's important to separate the policy from the politics. What Israel's doing is saying we're going to boycott the boycotters. And this BDS movement has, anti-Semitic roots. It's pretty radical. And these are the first 2 members of Congress ever to hold those anti-Israel views. So Israel has done this with other members of parliament, other allies of other countries. The politics, though, are much more tricky for Israel because they rely on bipartisan support in Congress, especially Democratic support. All the big Israel votes rely on a majority of Democrats. So when you have folks like Steny Hoyer, when you have Nita Lowey, head of the Foreign Relations Committee, speaking out about this decision, you're losing that bipartisanship.
So you think Israel should not have banned these two?
Well, there's the PR side of it. They're losing the PR battle, and that's a lot of the game for this issue. So
but it's also true that people need to understand the seriousness of efforts to go after Israel and its people, and there has been a lot of talk tolerance of BDS movements, boycott movements against Israel on the American left. And I think it's important for people to speak out against those movements and the harm that they cause instead of just tolerating them. And
this was not going to be an official congressional delegation, right?
No, it wasn't. But the broader point here of the Democratic Party being a necessary ally for long-standing Israeli security strategy is something that I think means that this is, on the balance, a mistake, even if the BDS thing is a big problem, as Molly suggests. But
we have also banned Israeli parliamentary members. A member of the Knesset was not allowed to come into the country under the Obama administration because of the views he held. So this isn't something that is not without precedent from multiple countries, including our own.
It's important to know that Trump was a big proponent of not letting these two members go to Israel. And I think Trump views this as beneficial for his political standing. He wants the Democratic Party to be representative of Tlaib and Omar's values.
Well, what about Benjamin Netanyahu? He has an election coming up.
Well, and I think it helps Netanyahu. I mean, there's certainly not a lot of support in Israel for these two backbenchers on the Democratic side, so I think it helps him politically. But Netanyahu originally, the Netanyahu government originally said it was okay for them to come. Trump tweeted out today that he would view that as unacceptable, and you quickly saw a backtracking from the government.
Except they said it didn't have anything to do with Trump's views on the matter, but the realization of their itinerary being different than what they thought.